What's up, guys? Josh here, 6 Up Tabletop. I got a cool little, let's see, cool little video type of deal I made. And, yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. Basically what we got going on here, I made a spreadsheet. I was thinking to myself, I was like, what would be the best way to show people what the best units are? And that's not just my opinion. Well, this is my opinion. But it'd be based on math, based on some facts, so let's just dive right into it. So I sorted out the units, Nomad Prince, Wayfinder using his Doom Hail Arrow, Waystrider, the Spellweaver with the magic attacks and the staff, the Waywatcher with the fast attacks or the piercing attacks. In both of this, he's not moving, so he gets the bonus. Wild Riders getting the bonus on the charge. Sisters of the Watch getting their chaos bonus and shooting twice. Sisters of the Watch shooting twice. Sisters of the Thorn, Eternal Guard using their defensive stance. Wildwood Rangers, the Rangers having their increase against monsters. Glade Guard, and the Glade Guard using their bodkin arrows. So I broke it down by ranged attacks. Basically going off the war scroll. All these are basically the General's Handbook unit allotments. So Glade Guard would be 10 models, Wild Rangers 10 models, etc. The hit percentage is based off if it's forced to hit. Basically, the math would be you can hit on a 4, 5, or 6, and you would not hit on a 1, 2, or 3. So basically 50% chance, and this is basically calculated throughout. For the hits, for the wounds, goes off the same math. Basically this formula is the number of attacks times the hits times the wounds. So this is the number of potential wounds you have after that attack. This calculates the rend versus a save of, so I calculate everything against a 4+ save. And then this is the total number, so once this reduces the number of wounds you produce by the amount that they save, this would be the total number, let's see, the total range of unsaved wounds. So it's pretty good. Like for example, Glade Guard bodkin arrows, they have rend -3, so the save on a 4+ save would be 0, because it technically would be unsavable. So this is the unsavable wounds times the damage. So this is to be the total range wounds. These two right here calculate the fact that it's adding the hunting falcon into this calculation. Melee attacks. This goes, so basically this follows the same suit. Melee attacks, the hits, wounds, damage, hit wounds. Then we got the rend right here. The save. Basically, rend would change the save, rend -1. Then the 33% chance that they're going to save. Unsaved wounds, the damage of the melee weapons, total melee wounds produced, magic damage. So if there was a caster, a wizard, spellweavers, or sisters, sisters of the Thorn, they are both assumed to cast Arcane Bolt, which would do one mortal wound unsavable. So this adds to the total wounds divided by the total points, based again once off the General's Handbook 2018. And then this is the total wounds per points, and then this is times 100 to make it into a reasonable decibel that we could compare. So here we go. Taking a look at this graph that I pulled. Very surprising on some of these, so I'll go highlight a couple. I would have thought the Glade Guard with bodkin arrows would have done like a lot more damage because they have that Alpha Strike ability. Turns out they're not super great. Wildwood Rangers versus monsters, getting that average of 2 damage, and they have 2 attacks each. The captain gets 3, 3's to hit, 3's to wound, rend -1. So they have the biggest profile by far. Then the regular Rangers also have the next biggest. So these seem to be right. The Wildwood Rangers, if they're not destroyed, and if your opponent doesn't target them, the Wildwood Rangers do seem to be actually the best unit per points for the Wanderers. So if there's like a best unit overall, be the Wildwood Rangers. Sisters of the Watch come in next, but that's only if they're fighting versus Chaos and they're not moving, which means they get to fire twice. They also do get to fire that Overwatch, but I did not account for that. I'm just anticipating aggressive damage and not defensive damage. So the Sisters did pretty good. Eternal Guard did really good. And I guess the reasoning for that in their defensive stance is because, sorry, let me highlight this, 16. So the reason they did so well is because they get to add ones to their hits, to their wounds, and to their saves. So they hit and wounded a ton. So a ton of damage went through, and that they're only 70 points for 10 models. So this is really cheap. Granted, they have a 5+ save, whatever. We're not worried about defense. The fact that they're only 70 points basically meant that they generated better value per the cost. So it's not like they do the total more wounds than any other unit. It's because based on their points that you're spending to add them into your army, how much wounds can they allocate, made them really good value. So this is very, very good value if you put them in defensive stance. Not as great if you don't. But then the Sisters of the Thorn, extremely expensive cav unit, 220 points. This kind of shows that they have a meh damage profile versus their points. Sisters of the Watch showed that they had some pretty good value here. Wild Riders, absolutely terrible. 120 points. They do not a lot of damage. The charge barely bumps them, so would not recommend Wild Riders whatsoever. Weight Watcher's pretty good. Shows basically that shooting the fast attacks, which means you add 3 extra, so you'd be shooting 6. You have a 1/6 chance to roll a 6 to add another, so you'd have 7 attacks. So it's versus a 4+ save, and if you're just calculating the range and attack, it's best to do the fast attacks, I guess. Spellweave with the magic attacks, just because they generated more attacks, offered a better, slightly more damage. The Waste Rider is pretty good. As expected, he does have just a ton of good melee damage, so that was pretty good for his cost. He was only 80 points, so which kind of put him above the Way Watcher, which I was surprised. I thought for sure the Way Watcher's damage output per points would be better than the Waste Strider. Wayfinder with the Doom Arrow turned out to be really great. Wayfinder itself was average, and Nomad Prince actually did pretty well considering it's only 80 points and he's got a ton of damage output. So that was pretty much all. Hope you guys enjoy this. This is a little bit different take, but it's a little bit more analytics. And so the #1 best unit would be the Wildwood Rangers, and they're extremely good versus monsters. Thanks, guys. Josh 6 Up Tabletop. You guys take care.